Hi everybody, in this video we'll talk about a controversial topic, lots of questions we're getting every day, public charge rule, what it is, and who will be affected by this regulation that came out January 27, 2020. But before we dive into the video, those of you who are here for the first time, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, click that bell to be notified of new videos. You can also follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. So in this video, we'll talk about public charge, general overview, and in future videos, I'll break it down based on the different categories that this rule has in effect. We also know about new forms that are going to be used when you file adjustment of status cases following the rule, and a lot of other updates that you need to know. So first things first, this rule is going to go into effect on the 24th of February 2020. Any petitions that are filed before that are not subject to the rule. So if you're watching this before February 24th, you need to file your adjustment of status applications, green card applications, as soon as possible, so you're not subject to the rule. So what happens after February 24th? So in determining what is public charge, the new regulations are actually shifting the responsibility from the U.S. citizen, the petitioner, where until this rule, when you file for an adjustment of status, you need to make sure that a U.S. citizen, the petitioner, has sufficient income to sponsor an immigrant. And by the way they were doing that to this day is looking at the petitioner's income, tax returns, and all the good stuff. But now under the new rule, they're going to be shifting a lot of their responsibility to the applicant, and they're going to be looking at factors as age, health, educational level, financial status, and things like that, which are really, really interesting because that's going to open the door to a lot more discretion and a lot more power for the government to decide who is likely to become a public charge. It also will make it very difficult for people that are coming from low-income families or people that really are struggling financially to qualify, because if you're thinking about it, those factors like age, health, family status, income, education are trying to classify a particular kind of people that will be more or less desired to immigrate to the United States. The rule is also focusing on people who are likely to become dependent on 9 of the government-sponsored programs. They added at least 5 new programs to people who are maybe using those programs over a period of 12 months in the aggregate within 36 months, which is 3 years of using at least 12 times those benefits, which is very, very limiting and may essentially eliminate a lot of people from applying for green cards in the near future. The final regulations also added at least 5 new programs where people who use them will be considered likely to become public charge. Some of these programs are Section 8, certain Medicaid, and SNAP food programs that were before not considered to be public charge. So that's also something that was expanded and will create a much larger pool of people who are not going to qualify based on these new regulations. And finally, these regulations are creating a system where UCS may impose a bond on somebody who may not qualify under these regulations, and unless they post the bond, they're not going to be able to qualify. So all in all, as you can see, there's quite a lot of changes and a lot of limitations that can really create a lot of hardship for people that typically are trying to get their green cards based on family reunification. We talked about a test of who is likely to become a public charge. We talked about shifting this from the U.S. petitioner to the applicant based on age, family status, health status, economical status, and education, things that were never considered before, essentially trying to narrow the pool of people who can qualify. It also creates more programs that people are using are going to be excluded from this. And finally, it calls for a bond for people to post bond for those that the government will think are not going to qualify under this rule. So this is kind of like in general what the new regulations are going to be. They're also going to be creating a new form I-944 that will be used for the purposes of filing an adjustment in addition to the regular forms that we know right now. So we'll create separate videos on each one of these categories, but in this video we just wanted to kind of summarize what we know about the rule, when it's going to be effective, and if you have any questions, make sure you post them below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And in the next videos we're going to break down further that rule. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.